Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blitz Sports Media. I'm Ryan Lincoln, and I'm back with my co-host Brady Penn. We're on the Blitz angle, and we have all of the Week 16 overreactions for you guys and discussing all of your hot takes down in the chat below. So make sure you guys are firing that up in the chat. We will get right into this Cowboys and Buccaneers game, talk about if the Buccaneers can hold on in the NFC South like we predicted here heading into the week. And then obviously the Cowboys playing great football. Brady, how you doing tonight?
I'm great. Honestly, I was a little bit underwhelmed by today's games. I think the highs were high. I think the lows were low, but overall, I think this is kind of a meh weekend, especially with some of the matchups that we got. Eagles and Commanders lived up to the hype. Texans and Chiefs was a fairly competitive game, but I wouldn't say that was a very hype-filled game. I don't think that was really ever in question. And Steelers-Ravens was kind of a dud, in all honesty. So I'm a little bit disappointed by this weekend's games, but there was some good football. There were some very interesting things, and there are some races, both awards-wise and standings-wise, to keep an eye on. You talked about the Bucs holding on in the NFC South. It's not theirs to hold on to now. The Falcons have themselves back into first place, and it's all going to come down to, can Michael Penix beat the Washington Commanders next week? They've got the Commanders and they've got the Panthers, and I was encouraged by what I saw from Penix today. I'm sure we'll get into that, but let's let you start off here with this Cowboys-Buccaneers game. I know you'll be disappointed that the fumble came from Rachaad White without Bucky Irving in.
Yeah, no, we'll shout out to some of the people in the chat. Trey, loyal follower of the show. What's up, Trey? I really think Dak sold the Cowboys playoff chances this year. Honestly, you got a pretty decent point. 3-5 start. Cooper Rush is playing good football, but obviously the schedule is eased up here in the second half of the season. But they're playing better. That is for sure. We got Angel in the chat. Angel, how we doing? Braden's in here calling you out with the winter hat and the winter coat.
Shut off my heat and all that, bro. No, I'm just kidding. I just got back. I was out in the frigid cold in Atlanta, so got on the live. Didn't really have much of a chance to maneuver outside the pocket.
Yeah, but let's talk about that game, Bucs and Cowboys. Man, the Buccaneers came out flat after dominating the Chargers that week. I mean, that's them, how they played coming out of the gate, just completely, set the tone for this game. The Cowboys defense was flying around. They were playing like they had nothing to lose. They were just playing to play, honestly. And honestly, these guys are playing for Mike McCarthy's job. I really think they are. They're playing hard football. Every player on offense and defense is grinding out those yards. I don't know how many times Collinsworth said it tonight, but he's just so surprised that these guys are playing so hard, given the fact that they're out of the playoff race. And they've continued to play good football now for 5-6 weeks. Cooper Rush just never does anything outside of what he needs. Like, he is the perfect, does what he needs to, plays good off the play action.
He's like the best type of backup to have. Like you say, he doesn't try to do too much. He's not trying to earn his next contract, his next spot. Like, he is the NFL equivalent of a great role player.
Yes, he is a great role player. You fill Cooper Rush in at quarterback, he could go 500 for you, look really solid for you, and, keep you in games. I was very impressed with the Cowboys secondary today. A lot of young players in there, a lot of injuries the Cowboys have had on that side of the ball, and they all stepped up today. We saw the fumble at the end of the game. We saw turnovers from Baker Mayfield. The Cowboys pass rush was alive and well today. That's the type of defense that we expected early on from the Cowboys that we didn't get. I think it took maybe this long in the season that Mike Zimmer's defensive scheme took this long to adjust for the Cowboys. I think that partly could be true, or some mixing and matching with that defense and some younger players developing also contributed to a lot of success on the defensive side of the ball. I want to jump back on the Bucs here real quick. I mean, I'm concerned. The offensive line got beat up today. Tristan Wirfs, great player. Outside of him, this unit stinks, Brady. I'm a little concerned about their offensive line. I think Bucky Irving, really good football player. He had a solid game. Mike Evans, we know how good Mike Evans is. But outside of Mike Evans and Bucky Irving, they're lacking another playmaker. I don't think Rachaad White is a talented playmaker just in general. I know he had a good season in fantasy football last year, but that's fantasy football because he had dumped down PPR points. He's not that guy. Baker Mayfield had a rough day. I think that was partly due to the pass rush. And you're right. This division is in Atlanta's favor. Now, they do have a harder schedule since they have the Commanders down the stretch, but we'll see what happens here. What are your takeaways from this one?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about it a minute ago. The Buccaneers are honestly in trouble, and I do think they will win out, and the Falcons are going to have to win out. But I don't know why. Maybe I'm off the mark here. I have like a strange confidence in Atlanta against Washington next week. I think Washington will be riding high coming off of this emotional victory over the Eagles today. They haven't been very consistent offensively the last couple of weeks, and I'm liking the Falcons' chances, honestly. The Buccaneers really let this one slip away, and even you can point to the Rashad White fumble, but they did not get anything going offensively all night long, pretty much. And it is concerning. The defense got worked pretty badly in the first half. They came around in the second half, and then the Bucs offense wasn't doing anything.
Yeah. We got some comments here in the chat. Mike Evans, first ballot Hall of Famer. He's getting there. He really is getting there. I think Brady, he's still in the mark for that 1,000-yard season this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him first ballot. I actually talk about this with these guys, Rohan, Angel, all of them. But I feel like we have this discussion every week because in the sacred Brady chat, there's a lot of division when it comes to the Mike Evans discourse. There are people that love Mike Evans in it, and there are people that hate Mike Evans. They think he sucks. They think if he gets in, it's the Hall of Fame accepting mid, which I'm not part of. I'm a huge Mike Evans truther, and I don't know about first ballot, but he definitely is a Hall of Famer. And what is his yard total at now? Do we know after tonight? He was at 749.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked at it.
He had 69 tonight. That's nice. Let's see. 749 and 60. He's at 818. So he's going to need about 180 over these last 2 weeks. 90 yards a game. It's doable.
It is very doable.
Panthers and Saints. So
for sure. Trey's in the chat. We saw Trey earlier this season saying Geno MVP, and now here we are. Seahawks sold. Trade up. We need to get a QB. Or whatever it is. They just need a new QB at Seattle. Said trade up for Trey Lance or somebody like that.
Gosh, no.
Trey Lance is not the answer, Trey. I know you like his first name, but he ain't the answer in Seattle. I do want to talk about that Seattle game real quick against the Vikings. I thought they played pretty well.
Vic is here.
But Vic is here, the GOAT. But what I'll say is I thought the Seahawks actually came to play today. I thought they played pretty well against the Vikings. They weren't bad at all. And Angel nailed it right in the head. This is exactly what I was going to say.
This is what I call
Sam Darnold to the Seahawks, man. He could be playing against this former team, in this matchup right here. I really do think that Sam Darnold could be a Seattle Seahawk next season. I really do think the writing is on the wall for Geno Smith. I mean, you can't lead the NFL in red zone turnovers for 2 straight years and expect to have a job next season. With the amount of talent they have on Seattle's offense, there's no way that this unit should be scoring more.
Yeah, especially with JSN's emergence and the way that the defense has played over the last 6-7 weeks with Mike McDonald developing them, the young guys they have, and then on the offensive side of the ball, I actually assume that in the draft they might invest in the offensive line, and I think you do need a new answer at quarterback.
Yeah, Cowboy Reg, we'll jump back on the Cowboys real quick. Resign Cooper Crush. I think he's a great backup. We really do think he's a great role player.
I am excited to see, what kind of moves the Cowboys make this offseason. It sounds like Jerry Jones isn't planning on spending a ton of money, but they can get some value guys at positions of need. And I think this can be a team that does contend for the NFC East again next year with Dak. I wasn't high on them heading into this season because in the offseason they didn't make any moves pretty much. But if they can make a couple of good signings this offseason, I think the Cowboys can get back to an 11-win, maybe 12-win type of team.
I agree. They're going to have an easier schedule next season than they did this year, too.
Yeah, they'll get second or third place teams across the board.
So we talked about the Vikings. We touched on that a little bit, beating up on the Seahawks. The Vikings are tied with Detroit now for the 1 seed. We got 2 NFC North teams tied atop. Minnesota has Green Bay and Detroit left. Detroit has San Francisco and then Minnesota left. Brady, what were your takeaways from the Vikings and the Lions this week?
Well, for the Vikings, Sam Darnold was really clutch. That throw to Justin Jefferson was beautiful towards the end of that ball game.
Yep.
And I'm going to keep saying it. And I know a lot of pundits are saying the same thing. We're just waiting to see what Sam Darnold does in the playoffs. He's proven himself time and time again this regular season. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. And then if Sam Darnold does leave on top of that, leaves Minnesota, I want to see if he was a KOC merchant or not. Because I do feel like this scheme is just OP. I feel like the weapons are OP. Not to say that I don't think Sam Darnold can't do anything somewhere else, but I will be interested to see if it translates to another team. We'll see, though. The NFC, it feels like I have new confidence and then lost confidence in a different team every single week.
That's exactly how I'm feeling right now. All three teams, I feel jumbled.
Been high on the Rams, who have looked pretty bad the last 2 weeks, especially offensively. We were feeling pretty decent about the Buccaneers the last few weeks, and then they do what they did tonight. The Packers, they've been fairly consistent, but they can't win the big games yet so far this season. It's just weird. The Vikings, we don't really have that full level of trust. And then the Eagles today, I know they didn't have Jalen Hurts, but that defense in the fourth quarter just looked tired and very susceptible. So I'm saying that the Lions are still getting the 1 seed. It's been my tune for the last month, 2 months, especially with the Eagles loss today. I trust the Lions to pretty much, I think all they have to do is not lose both these last 2 games. And I think that they will beat Minnesota. I like the Lions to get this 1 seed, and I do think the Vikings can be a dangerous playoff team, but it's going to come down to Sam Darnold, literally.
Yeah, Vikings today took care of business. Talked about that. Great drive by Sam Darnold there to Justin Jefferson right after the Seahawks answered. And, that was a big drive for them. Sam Darnold went and took a game in the fourth quarter down a score, which is a big sign for them in the playoffs in those type of atmospheres. And that's kind of what it was like in Seattle, with Seattle fighting for that division and both these teams needing this win. The Lions, on the other hand, I was at this game, Lions-Bears. I mean, the Lions just jumped on the Bears quickly. I mean, that was a disgusting performance by the Bears. We'll talk about the Bears disaster.
It's brass in the building. We had Mickey Mutters. We had Bad Boy CC. We had Link in there.
whole lot of people in the building. But what I will say, the Lions defense, it's still concerning. I mean, the Bears are one of the worst first quarter offenses I think I've ever watched in my life, and they got cooked after that first quarter, set 2, 3, and 4. The Lions defense continue to get shredded through the air. I think San Francisco could be a trap game next week. I really do. If San Francisco performs okay on offense, I think Kyle Shanahan against backup players on defense is a tough matchup. Offensively, they're a juggernaut. They're still amazing on offense. And the Lions, I do think you're right. I think they are going to finish as the 1 seed in the NFC. Now, I mentioned this. The NFC is jumbled at the top right now. Philadelphia was my number 1 team heading into this week, just based off of how they were playing, where they were trending. And then they lay an absolute egg this week against the Commanders. The Lions have so many injuries on that defense. I don't think I could trust them in a postseason game against a good offense with those injuries. And then you got the Rams haven't played well. You got the Bucs who were hot, fell apart today. You got the Vikings who were just saying, Sam Darnold, when's he going to fall apart? Green Bay has had their struggles in the passing game when Jordan Love's got going and through the air. And then you got the final team, the Washington Commanders, who we're not buying into. It's a mess in the NFC, Brady. I could see a reason for any team making a run.
I think we should all hope for the Michael Penix rookie playoff run. No, I'm just kidding.
Gosh, stop it. Stop it.
I'm just joking, but I mean, I've rode with the Lions all season. I was kind of tilting towards the Eagles a little bit. Didn't like what I saw from them today, especially after the first half Saquon he got absolutely put in a box in the second half and did nothing against that Commanders front.
I do want to say this. The only reason they lay an egg is because Hurts was out. That wasn't true. Their defense sold.
The defense giving up 22 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, their defense sold. Poor clock management happened. And you're right. It had an impact because they stacked the box. Devonta Smith had a chance to lock the game up on third down and completely dropped the ball. Like, they just executed so poorly in the fourth quarter, and it was just really bad football. It wasn't because Jalen Hurts was out.
Also, that 1 seed, if the last few years of history tells anything, it is going to be extremely important. Obviously, that's kind of, redundant to say that the 1 seed is important. But the last 2 years, we've seen the 1 seed in the NFC make it to the bowl in the Eagles and the 49ers the last 2 seasons. So there's a good chance that if you can get the road to the Super Bowl to run through your stadium, that you will make it. And I want to see the road to the Super Bowl run through Ford Field. I want to see the underdog, always terrible for pretty much our whole life until last year, Lions make it, personally.
Yeah, but Vic says the defense just has to be better going forward. And I mean, they were great. This is one of the hottest defenses in the NFL. I think a regression was expected with a lot of young players at some point this season, and they've been playing a lot of football. They had an early bye week. They're starting to get a little drained, and potentially not getting that bye, like you just mentioned, could be a big impact on the type of defense we get from the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, also, I think there are a few different matchups to look at. If you look at just Eagles versus Lions, The Eagles' strength of their defense, they have a solid secondary, but the strength of their defense is that defensive front led by Jalen Carter.
That run defense is deadly.
But the Lions have the best offensive line in the NFL. And honestly, it's two really good units. If I have to pick one with a gun to my head, who's going to win that matchup in the trenches, I like the Lions O-line.
Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting for sure. Let's talk about the Bears disaster real quick. Man, Brady, this is one of the worst football teams I think I've watched run ever. Like 20-0, just like that today. The offense does absolutely nothing. 2 fumbles to start the game. Defensively, big chunk plays, just bang, bang, bang. And then here we are, 20-0. Game's over in the first quarter. Lions fans around Soldier Field are chanting Jared Goff. They're so happy about their mid-pocket passer. And, it's crazy what, it's come to.
Podcast talking about Jared Goff is in the thick of the MVP conversation. No, he isn't.
The Lions have a great team, I'll say that, but the Bears are so poorly coached, and that's why I think Mike Vrabel is an appealing hire for them. They need discipline, dude.
They need offense, man. They need
Ben Johnson's intrigued. He's intrigued. That'd be such a good get.
Ben Johnson needs to come to New England, but Robert Kraft is too scared to get
Gerard Mayo is expected to be back.
It's brutal. He is literally horrendous. And we'll talk about them, I'm sure, in a few minutes. But no, the Bears. It's funny. I saw on Friday a video. I believe it was Ricardo Lockett talking about his time in Chicago. And granted, this was like a decade ago, but it was same ownership. He said it was one of the worst run organizations. He said when he was in Seattle, it was intense in practice every day. They were competing in practice every day. The energy was high. He said in Chicago, you drop a ball in practice, nobody says anything to you. Nobody cares. There's no music. There's no energy. Nobody really cares to compete. They're just in there to get in and out and go through the motions. And I truly think things like that in the NFL start with the ownership. And it's the McCaskies. That's how you say it, right?
Hey, I heard a lot of sell the team chants today at Soldier Field.
Out of there for the Bears to have some success, unless they just absolutely build an OP coaching tree and roster. I think that just
their roster, you look at their roster on paper, it's a very good roster on paper. Just didn't work out with the coaching staff they had, and it just looks like every player didn't get better.
Yeah, 100%. And so the Bears, it'll be interesting to see what kind of moves they make going forward in the offseason. They're another team that it's going to be offensive line help. I 100% believe. I think they could get some front 7 guys. I know they have Montez Sweat, but they don't have a whole lot of other pass rushing help or great linebackers at that. TJ Edwards and Edmonds have both been pretty disappointing this season.
Bad.
So I think front 7 and offensive line are the 2 areas that you have to look this offseason.
100% for sure. Let's jump on the AFC side of things. Enough with the NFC, where both of us are AFC guys. Brady, the 1 seed. It's getting close to being over here. Kansas City with a big win over Houston. Buffalo did take care of business against New England, which was a tighter game than many expect. And Josh Allen potentially has a hand injury. It kind of looked like almost a forearm injury, the way he was like extending it, opening it.
Reported elbow or something.
Yeah, I think he'll be okay, given like a week rest, but we'll see what happens.
I said he's a gamer. I don't think that injury will really affect their trajectory, but the more concerning thing is just how slow they were on offense today. And it was a lot of weirdness too. I will say Khalil Shakir, for the first time really this season, just displayed awful hands. It was his least efficient game by far. I felt like Allen kind of forced some things and just wasn't very comfortable back there today. Didn't really take off as much, and he was bound to. We can't expect him to have 4 or 5
30 points in like 8 straight games, and they were bound to be bad for one game.
Right, and it is funny, like they have a chance to break that record and all of a sudden slow down. They have the Jets due up, and then the Patriots one more time, I believe. So they should be able to win out, but at this point, I think there's just as much of a chance that the Chiefs win out if they need to. If the Chiefs win this week, it's a moot point. They might rest everybody and lose by technicality in Week 18, but it does look like for a team to make it to the Super Bowl, it's not Kansas City. They're probably going to have to go into Arrowhead and do it. And I will say just about the Chiefs, I'm sure we'll talk more on this in a minute. That was one of their more efficient and clean offensive games yesterday. Xavier Worthy had probably his best game that we've seen him have. The Texans were running a lot of soft zone coverage, which Worthy talked about. And then Marquise Brown did make an instant impact. The one thing I'll say, I was really interested. I know we talked We talked a lot about Isaiah Pacheco and when he comes back, what he'll do for this offense. He's been really bad, man. The rushing attack has gotten a lot worse with Pacheco, and I think from what I read up, that injury really takes a long-term toll on your burst and your explosion. So the Chiefs' rushing attack was 9th in EPA per play and 1st in success rate weeks 3 through 12 without Pacheco. Since he returned, they're 24th in EPA per play rushing and 27th in success rate. And like I said, it might be – I know he's not your favorite, but it might be time to pivot back to Kareem Hunt, which it seemed like they kind of did yesterday in the second half.
Yeah, but Vic mentioned this is the official Josh Allen, what we've heard. He fell on his elbow and lost feeling in his hand. He probably hit an elbow nerve or a funny bone or some cramp momentarily, might be a contusion. It should not impact him long-term, hopefully. Yeah, I don't think it's – what do you say?
Sideline reporter Bavik.
Sideline reporter Bavik. He is on the sidelines. It is rap sheet Bavik. Hey, if we ever need a rap sheet, Bavik, you're our guy. So I'll say this about the Bills and Patriots real quick before we get into that Chiefs game. I mentioned it already. Regression was due for the Bills offense. I think defensively, their concerns still showed against a Patriots team that struggled on offense at times this year. I was impressed. Drake May does what he always does, makes a few plays. Ramondre Stevenson, I think, had a nice day as well.
He had that fumble that kind of opened the flood.
He always fumbles, dude, but he just looks good. It's just the stupidest
thing. He's a great runner. He just needs to work on his ball security.
Which is fixable. Like, you can fix that. You can't teach talent, and he has talent, which is nice to think about in New England. Like, New England played well. I wasn't disappointed, but the Drake May fumble, dude, that ruined everything. The throw behind the line of scrimmage, that changed the whole game.
Yeah, you have to catch that.
You have to catch that, or you just don't throw that. I mean, either or.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
No, I'll let you go ahead.
I was going to pivot off that game into the Chiefs game. If you got anything
I just wanted to say, like, I know Jaden Daniels was great today, and Jaden Daniels has been really good. I feel more vindicated every week that long-term Drake May is going to be the best quarterback in this class. We saw that first touchdown he had was probably one of the most accurate throws by any quarterback this season. And I keep seeing tweets that make me feel great about the future of my team, even though we're not good right now. See all these insiders and all these football personalities on Twitter talking about, man, it's so this sucks. It's so obvious Drake May is going to be an elite quarterback. Like, Drake May is so good. He needs to demand a coaching change. Like, this dude is insane. He's going to be QB1. I'm like, yes, I agree. I'm excited to see what can happen. And if we could somehow get T. Higgins and Travis Hunter this offseason, then Drake May.
No, individual.
Yeah,
What I will say, though, Brady, I think we need to give Jaden Daniels his flowers a little bit. I mean, he's not going to be anywhere near Lamar Jackson, but this dude just flat out makes plays in the fourth quarter. Like, constantly. He constantly finds a way to make a play in the fourth quarter. It's not flashy. He's definitely not a great passer, and he's definitely not the rusher that Lamar is, but he continues to make plays. Commanders are going to be a playoff team. I mean, he's not going to be, I don't think, a bad NFL quarterback. I think he could be a solid playmaker in the league if he stays healthy. I think staying healthy is the biggest part for him in developing his game as a passer. We've seen, what is this, like year 6 for Lamar, year 7, somewhere around there. Like, Lamar has continued this trend of developing upward as a passer. I think Daniels could do that as well, which will make him better down the stretch. But the guy has to stay healthy. He has the talent to be a playmaker in this league. I think the division does play into his hands a little bit. Just being in that division with no other kind of running quarterback in the division. We've seen, like, the AFC North against Lamar Jackson, seen it for years. Daniels is a different wow factor in that division where they don't face Lamar 2 times every year. Daniels will have that down the stretch, but he has that surprise of that rushing ability that division hasn't necessarily seen since Michael Vick, maybe with the Eagles. So I think Daniels in that regard does have.
What about RG3 back in the day, man?
What do you say?
What about RG3 back in the day on the same team for a year?
That's about like the same time. 2011 Eagles, 2012 Redskins. Whoa.
That was Michael Vick's last year with the Eagles.
2012 was?
Yeah,
that's when they all fell apart. Andy Reid, 2013 Chiefs.
Foles came in the back half of the year.
Yeah, and then Reid got fired. Then we went to the Chiefs. That's how it went.
Kelly came in and tried to run a college program, and they all hated it. But
did not work very well.
Jaden
all right,
Daniels.
I'll talk about what were you saying?
I was just going to say Jaden Daniels played really well. I do want to say this is going to sound like some hating stuff, but I do want to say he got bailed out of that interception at the end by Devontae Smith. It was a bad read. But no, he was very efficient. his deep ball looked really good. And that's the one thing I don't think we've ever had any question about is Jayden Daniels' deep ball. It's throwing over the middle. And on that last touchdown, he found a man, Jamison Crowder, over the middle. So if he can continue to build on that, I think he could be a successful quarterback. I do think Drake May will be better. It'll be interesting to see who will be better long-term between him and Caleb. Just want to, like I said, see the bounce back from Caleb next year or what he's able to do. But I think Jayden Daniels has played really well, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, we've talked about the Cliff Kingsbury effect, and guys tend to tail off with Cliff Kingsbury. We've seen Dan Quinn's act run stale before as a head coach, but we'll see. I think they need to get him a wide receiver too this offseason and keep trying to build because there's only so long that you can go just buddy ball with Terry McLaurin.
100%. Let's talk about Chiefs Texans real quick on my end. This was the best Chiefs performance of the year in my opinion. The defense actually clicked on third down a little bit in the second half. First half wasn't great. They still struggled. They got Tank Dell. He's going to be out for a while. It really stinks to see him get hurt again.
Career legitimately could be cooked.
Yeah, I mean, that's scary injury. It was a really scary injury, but he was cooking again. Obviously, anybody that is a wide receiver too and is facing the Chiefs, you have to take their overs. It's just a lock every week. Take either their overs or the tight ends overs that week, and they're going to have a big day against the Chiefs. I will say defensively, the biggest concern out of this one, the pass rush just seems to not get home like it should. Like the Texans have a pretty bad offensive line, and you saw through 3 quarters there not be much pass rush. I think that's my biggest concern on defense. Offensively, most encouraging game of the year. It wasn't pretty up front. I'll say that. It wasn't pretty. It was good against elite pass rushers. Marquise Brown, he's a different element for this offense. He can run over the middle. He provides a different speed, and he runs crisp routes. I haven't seen a wide receiver with that skill set in this offense the whole year. And DeAndre Hopkins, great possession catch receiver, and it seems like he's really wearing off on Xavier Worthy. They talked about their chemistry and Hopkins basically being a mentor for Worthy and being hard on Worthy when he messes up. And we've seen Worthy, since the Hopkins trade, become almost a different football player. I'm actually encouraged about Xavier Worthy's long-term value in this team with how they're using him as of late. He looks like a completely different player. If they can run 3 wide receiver sets in the postseason with Marquise Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and Xavier Worthy with the current versions that they are, I think that's a deadly trio that is going to be a solid version of the Chiefs offense with a washed Travis Kelce over the middle, Noah Gray sprinkled in as well. I can get behind that group of weapons in the postseason. Now, it's the offensive line. That's all it's going to come down to. And then you mentioned Pacheco. He's just not the same player right now. It's a fractured fibula. Like, it's a tough injury to overcome in a season, and credit to him for making his way back, but he's not the same player yet. And I fully expect them to kind of do that committee on early downs like they have, but it was malpractice that Andy Reid had Isaiah Pacheco in on 2 straight 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1 play call when you know Kareem Hunt is the best running back on short yardage. Just give Kareem Hunt the ball. Everybody knows he's going to get the ball. Just give him the ball, plow forward. Pacheco's not there yet, and I think Pacheco, like you mentioned, could lose a little bit of volume, but he'll still have a role in the offense because he's Isaiah Pacheco. But overall, that's kind of my take on the game, and I do think it is an improved Chiefs team. At least this is probably the most encouraging win. I know 1-score game, but this game felt like it was a bigger score than I think they won by 8 points, something like that. I think it was a bigger performance than that.
It didn't feel like it was in question past the second quarter, or really, I'll say after they scored following the Tank Dell touchdown. I mean, Tank Dell, after that injury, it felt like the win completely came out of the Texans' sails. They even missed the PAT after. But the one thing I'll say, Patrick Mahomes, maybe his greatest asset is the ability to adapt. And this has kind of been the norm the last 2 years, but he excelled at it yesterday, knowing that he's got that ankle and everything and the offensive line. He threw the ball quickly. He was 17. He had 19 attempts under 2.5 seconds. Time to throw was 17 of 19. That was his fastest average time to throw since week 4 of 2021. This was finding guys underneath and in space, finding guys quick.
Hey, you know what I said going into this week? We're going to get a great Andy Reid game plan in the passing game. Like, you just knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, this Chiefs team, they're not going to win downfield, and that's just the reality of it at this point, especially without Rashee Rice, who every once in a while can run a slot fade or win on the outside. D-Hop is not burning anybody at this point. Hollywood Brown, we'll see, could be able to take the top off, but This team plays an underneath style, and they are the best ball control offense in the NFL. I said it yesterday on Twitter. It's really frustrating to watch if you don't like the Chiefs because they have perfected the mid offense. If it's
not even mid, it's just perfecting ball control, basically.
3rd and 7, they're getting 8 yards. If it's 3rd and 3, they're getting 4 yards. They're going to barely get it. They're going to run little, like, I don't know, a pick play, a short drag, an out route to the sticks. They're not going to have any explosives really, but they're going to limit the opposing offensive time on the field. And I do want to say, like, I know that you give them some heat, and I know it's easy to do this because there were some really good Patriots defenses that I did the same thing with in the regular season. But the story, everybody wants to talk about Mahomes. Everybody wants to talk about Reed. Everybody wants to talk about Kelsey. The last 2 years, this defense is number 1 in points allowed in the NFL. And part of that is the offense limits the other team's possessions. But this defense, even if the sacks aren't accumulating as much this year, they are great. Trent McDuffie is amazing. He's lined up to get another All-Pro this year, I think. The secondary as a whole is good. I mean, Justin Reed is not a household name, but I think he's a great safety.
They found another gem, Jaden Hicks, man. This guy's going to be a stud.
You've got Karlaftis. You've got Chris Jones, obviously, maybe the most underrated defensive player of the last decade. Bolton and Tranquil and Leo Chenal are a great linebacking trio, and Spags is just a great DC. I think that this team's going to be really hard to beat. I think their offense is good. I think they're at least good enough to win, as we saw kind of the way they did last postseason. This defense, though, I don't know. It's going to be – there's only 2 or 3 teams that I will trust to put up 27 points or so on this defense.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about 2 other AFC teams that are honestly probably the most intriguing race now left in the AFC is that AFC North race between the Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens took care of business in a dominant fashion over the Steelers, and it looked like that Russell Wilson fumble near the goal line changed everything in this game. It was a back and forth match. That Russell Wilson fumble changed everything, Brady. Wilson, pretty good performance in my opinion. He played very well, and there was a stretch there where we had Lamar Jackson interception, Russell Wilson interception that turned into a pick six, and then the game was over. I thought Russ actually played pretty well. No George Pickens, but credit to Baltimore's defense. They're just starting to gel. They're playing a lot better. I'm not convinced they are going to be a good defense come postseason time, but they have a great run defense, and the secondary is young and could provide some teams some headaches. I really do think that in Baltimore's case, they are going to wind up taking this division. I do not think Pittsburgh is going to beat Kansas City this week. And on Pittsburgh's side of things, you have to be concerned if you drop this game against Kansas City. This is going to be a tough, gritty game where you match up well against a team who struggled against pass rush teams this year. The Texans weren't able to get it done last week, but the Steelers and the Chiefs are going to try to control the clock. Steelers are going to try to win with that pass rush. We'll see what happens, but this is a must-win game for the Steelers this week for the division. On the Ravens side of things, they just need to go and take care of business. They need to start fast, and they need to stick through, because we've seen times this year where the Baltimore Ravens have started slow, Brady, and they've lost games to like the Raiders. And we're sitting there like, how are the Ravens losing to the Raiders? The Ravens need to start fast, take care of business, and then go from there.
Yeah, I think the Ravens are heating up at the right time. I think Lamar's, obviously, we've talked about whether he wins the award or not. He was playing at an MVP level. Derrick Henry has even been able to take a bit of a back seat the last couple of weeks. He did have 100+ yesterday again. Zay Flowers is coming along. And I do think the X factor on this defense, aside from Zach Orr gaining more experience as a defensive play caller, Nate Wiggins is getting more and more burn. He's being entrusted more and more on the outside. He's a smaller corner, but he is extremely fast. He's got great ball skills. He's got great footwork. And I know that all the talk for us has been Buffalo and Kansas City, Buffalo and Kansas City. And at the beginning of the year, if you remember, I was super, super high on Baltimore. They went on a little bit of a cold streak. I never hopped off the Baltimore train. I'm still
telling you, Baltimore is going to be a really tough matchup for the Bills.
Buffalo, but I want to say this: if it's Buffalo and Kansas City, it's a great matchup. But if we get Baltimore and Kansas City, and Lamar has a chance against them, I would still pick Kansas City. But I do think the Ravens would scratch and claw and be a really, really tough team to beat. I think they're coming into form at the right time. The Bills need to get on that wavelength too, because the Chiefs and Ravens are both doing this. They're both getting hot at the right time. I know the Bills had a big win last week. The defense was suspect. The week before that, they lost. The defense was suspect. Defense locked in the second half today, but the offense was not at the same level they have been. So I want to see a little bit more from the Bills. The Ravens, though, and the Chiefs, they're starting to click at the time you're supposed to click.
Yeah, but Vic mentions the Steelers need George Pickens back. Their usual selves. The Ravens are a contender. They've got the offense. Putting Kyle Hamilton in a different area of the field has completely changed their offense. I agree the Kyle Hamilton switch has been really beneficial for Baltimore. I just think the cornerback matchups are going to be what scares me in this Baltimore team come postseason time.
Really good this year. Marlon Humphrey, I've seen him projected as a potential All-Pro, which I did not realize he was having this effective of a year. But again, if him and Nate Wiggins can put something together, I don't like Brandon Stevens on the outside, but those two, they are good enough. Sort of like I said for the Chiefs offense, they're good enough if Lamar can, put up 28 on the board.
We'll see. Come postseason time, the biggest thing though, like the Ravens, they have to start strong. If they don't start strong, they get themselves in trouble, and this offense gets so pass happy. It's almost like the same script.
You can't abandon Derrick Henry, and I think that needs to be the point of emphasis.
Agreed. I do want to talk about the Steelers real quick, just because Vic mentions George Pickens being out. Do you think the George Pickens injury is more of an impact on this offense struggling the past few weeks, or do you think this is more of what the Steelers offense we should come to expect against contenders?
I think this is more of them playing stronger competition. I do think George Pickens is good. George Pickens is not a top 15 receiver, though. George Pickens is a solid player. He's one of the better 50-50 guys down the field. He doesn't have a good, he doesn't separate. He's not super fast. He doesn't separate, but he makes contested catches. And I think it's tough when you're making your living off a contested catch guy down the field as your alpha, as your number one, as opposed to a Jefferson, a Jamar that's all around guy, A.J. Brown, or an Amon-Ra that can just eat in the middle of the field. This is a guy that pretty much relies on downfield 50-50 grabs. And as a result, a lot of games you'll see George Pickens 3 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown, 4 catches for 73. He's a low volume, high efficiency guy.
I can see him being in a play for a receiver this offseason too.
100%. And you mentioned Deebo Samuel. I could see that. We'll see what the market looks like for receivers, and I'm sure there will be somebody that we're not even thinking about that'll end up coming available via trade. It just always seems to happen. And, I think this is just sort of more who the Steelers are. I certainly think George Pickens would have helped yesterday. I don't think he changes the outcome of that ball game, though. And I don't think he changes against the Eagles either.
100%. I agree with that take right there. Let's talk about Michael Penix before we close the show. Brady, what did you think of Penix's debut today?
I was impressed, and I know people might just look at the stats and be like, he had an interception. That was completely Kyle Pitts' fault. That was really – I don't understand what happened there.
Kyle Pitts is just a bad football player. Can we just say that right now?
I'm going to come around on it, man. I have started to already, but at some point you can't blame the quarterbacks anymore. But I was encouraged by Michael Penix all in all. I think it was clear off the bat that he has a connection with Darnell Mooney and Drake London. I think he was looking for both of them early and often as opposed to Kirk. And the most encouraging thing, something I told you to look for, Ryan, he was able to move around on plays. And some of it was subtle movement. Some of it was a step to the right, a step up. Kirk was not doing that. I even saw Penix take off a couple of times in this ball game. And it just felt like, I know it's the Giants, and I don't want to put too much stock into it or anything. It felt like the team, especially offensively, had a different energy than they had the last 2-3 weeks. They felt extremely flat with Kirk.
When you turn the ball over that much, it's hard not to feel that way.
Like a grind to get any sort of positive, significant yardage. And with Penix today, they seemed a lot more relaxed. Mooney, London, like I said, they were playing their game. Bijan's a stud. He's always going to be Bijan. And then even you saw Drake London getting in a fight, stirring up the energy even more. The defense played really well against Drew Lock. 2 pick sixes, one for Judon, who finally decided to show up for once. Jesse Bates, he's a guy that's going to be an all-pro, I think, again, one of the best safeties in the league, if not the best. And, the Falcons, it's just going to come down to this Commanders game. If they beat this Commanders team this week and remain in first heading into the last week, they're not losing that game to the Panthers.
It's a hot take. I will say what I'm thinking about this. I'll talk about Bryce Young in a second because I do want to talk about his game and the Cardinals. We'll close with that instead. Michael Penix Jr., I thought, just did what he needed to in his debut. He didn't go out there and try to make a crazy throw. He didn't go out there and try to throw across his body, make a crazy play. He stayed within the offense. He rolled out. He made some plays with his legs, which we haven't seen for the Falcons this year. And he provides a different element. I know they were playing the Giants. I don't want to look too much into this outing, but I was encouraged. They were able to utilize Drake London in the middle of the field like they have all season. Darnell Mooney got a little bit more involved vertically, which I expected to see, which was nice. Now I want to see it against the Washington Commanders. Now I want to go see Penix go take this game. He's only had one start, though. Like
I want to see Drake London, that matchup, get exploited against St. Juste.
Yeah, I mean, they should. Drake London honestly just feels like he still is underrated at this point.
Lattimore just like looked washed today. I know he's going against A.J. Brown.
He's been out for a while.
But he's nearing 30 if he's not there already at the cornerback position. It's pretty much a death sentence. I do have one thing for you, though. We have one of our viewers, Anna Giroux. She wants to know your thoughts on Drake London.
Drake London, great over-the-middle receiver. I feel like London, honestly, reminds me a lot of Travis Kelce, the way he can find space in defenses. He has that ability to just sit down in zone coverages, and he's very good at it. I think Kirk Cousins was great with him because Cousins was a smart quarterback, but I feel like with Penix offers more down-the-field options for London, which we haven't seen from him this season, which is going to be great. I do think London has the talent to be a top 10 receiver. He's not there right now.
Best receiver in this class. I don't care. He's better than Garrett Wilson. He's better than Olave.
We'll see Garrett Wilson could end up with a really good quarterback next year, which might change things. We'll see what happens. I do want to touch Bryce Young. Bryce Young, he did it, Brady. Great performance and a win. A win.
Oh, the dream is dead for the Cards. No.
The Cards dream is over, dude. I stuck a fork in him a long time ago, and I know you still had a little slimmer of hope. It's gone, bro. Drew Petzing, get him out of here. Drew Petzing's got to go.
Weeks ago, whatever game they lost 2 or 3 weeks ago was when I really I think it was the Seahawks, the second Seahawks game. That's when I gave up on them. But no, did you see the Trey McBride video after the game?
No.
He was in the tunnel and he said, how the F did we lose to those effing guys? He was like, they're sorry as F. We effing suck. Like,
bro, that's what happens when you lose the Panthers. That's how down bad people feel.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
but like this is a better Panthers team than people think.
It is, but I do want to say for the Cardinals, as a guy that just defended him nonstop through his career, I think we do need to start having some uncomfortable conversations about Kyler Murray. He's not good over the field. He had the concern coming into the league with his short stature that he wasn't going to be able to see much between the tackles and scan the field over the middle as much. He hasn't been accurate deep down the field this year, and the athletic ability off of the ACL isn't quite as much as it was his first 2-3 years in the league. I really like Kyler Murray. You see the flashes, but how much consistency have we really got from number one in Arizona?
Not enough. That's for sure. I mean, they can't even get their number one wide receiver involved, who we thought was going to be a generational receiver coming out.
Still do think Mark Harrison's going to be really good. I don't think this season is as much of a reflection on him as it is.
No, it's part of the coaching problem with what they've been doing. If you look at it as like analytics, like he's actually been fine. Like it's just
grossly misused. They don't put him in the slot enough.
James Conner, though, he seems to not age for some reason. James Conner's still very good.
He's a bulldog, man. He's a cancer survivor. He's got that toughness.
Yes, sir, 100%. But hey, we really appreciate you guys tuning into all of our Week 16 overreactions. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, drop a comment down below of all your overreactions for this week. Hit that subscribe button for more Blitz Sports Media content. And me and Brady will catch you guys next time.
See you later.